The entirety of the Dead by Daylight community is working hard to convince Netflix to bring back Stranger Things license into Dead by Daylight. We're going to talk about it in this video. Hello, people of the internet. This is Psychotoic here with another video. Today, we are going to add to the conversation of the very heated and inspirational topic that is bring back Stranger Things to Dead by Daylight. So, for those that were not around at the time, this chapter was a big deal for many, many reasons. Back in 2019, we were introduced to the first chapter of a modern horror, which was Stranger Things, Chapter 13. Not only was this the first modern horror license to be acquired by Dead by Daylight, this was the first time we had two survivors in the same chapter. Prior to this, it was always one survivor, one killer. And this was the first time we had two, which was interesting because we now had two new licensed survivors in the game, but we also had 6 new perks to work with, instead of the typical 3 in a new chapter. On top of all that, we had the new killer, Demogorgon, and we also had the new map, Hawkins Laboratory, which would be the first indoor map since the game with the Saw chapter. Now, this was interesting for a multitude of reasons. We were introduced to the idea of these vertical stair loops, and then we also had Demogorgon, who was not a human killer. This was a first. We hadn't had a killer at the time that was a monster. It broke the principle that they were holding so dear to their hearts at the time, which was to have only these fictional human characters be killers, and Demogorgon was almost a humanoid alien that they decided to break the rules, and it was fair to say it worked out, as we would get future killers that would also be not humanoid, such as the Dredge and the Singularity. In 2021, we would unfortunately have to be closing the doors to Hawkins Laboratory for the last time, saying goodbye to Steve, Nancy, and the Demogorgon from the Steam shop and all other shops of access to that content. For the license with Netflix and behavior had come to an unfortunate close. For whatever the reasons, we'll never know. Unfortunately, the best guess that we have is Netflix had decided to end the license with them, and thus the content had to be revoked. Those who made purchases were allowed to still have them, but no further purchases would be allowed when it came to Stranger Things within Dead by Daylight. Now, it's been about 2 years now since that content has left us, and unfortunately, it's sad to see that majority of the community at this point probably has not been able to play as Demogorgon, or even had the chance to experience a very different indoor map in Hawkins. So where does that leave us now, 2 years later? If you were to try and acquire the content at the time I am making this video, it is only accessible by third-party retailers that are reselling codes for Steam, or a limited edition copy of the game called the Nightmare Edition for consoles. They are not selling anywhere near a reasonable price for this content. Is no longer in the game, and the demand is high. Now, speaking of that demand, if you navigate Twitter right now and go to Netflix Geeked, you can look at any tweet within the last 2 weeks, and the only thing you will see is everyone saying they want Stranger Things back in Dead by Daylight. Now, this has been going on for a bit. There's a petition out there with over 40,000 something signatures. People want this content. Netflix pulled it for whatever the reasons, we still don't know. In a interview with Matthew Cote, the director of the game, he even asked if anybody was able to reach out to Netflix, and he said, no, well, me neither. Which is not a good sign. That makes it very clear that they've been unsuccessful and have obviously tried to reacquire this content and come up with a new agreement to which we would not obviously know, but they've made their attempts. So this really only leaves us one option, which would be to use our voice and be as vocal as we can to maybe convince Netflix to see how much demand there is for this content in this game. People have said many, many times that, guys, we want to give you our money, and you're just not letting us. It's the freest thing on the table. It's just walk in and grab the money off the plate and walk out. And they're not doing it. Instead, they're just listening blindly. For all we know, we're not getting through to them, but the best thing we can do is try. And for that is why this video exists. That is why the attention is being made to this topic. I'm sure you might have heard about it already, but the more we can maybe convince the internet and the algorithm to maybe get our voices heard and bring back this content, that's the best thing we can do. And for that, it is worth it. That being said, be sure to leave a like. Let's keep YouTube happy and make sure that we can keep this topic relevant. We cannot let this go silent. We need everybody that we can to be vocal. We will not convince big corporate Netflix with our tiny little voices if we choose to give up and forget. This is a mission. This is an operation. It takes everyone. For once, we can all agree on one thing in the Dead by Daylight community, and that is Stranger Things being back in the game for everybody. And making sure that that mission can be met requires everyone. Do your part. Spread the news. Keep the conversation going. It is all we can do, but it's what we must do to ever see what is at the end of the tunnel for Stranger Things and Dead by Daylight's future. See you next time.